Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're discussing the very possible Mechanicus Civil War. Spoiler warning to begin, as today we will be referencing events from the Warhammer 40k novel Genefather by author Guy Hayley. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first without spoilers, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. So over the past week, we've been discussing the step forward in the narrative that Genefather has provided, the repercussions of its events, and the setup for the future. Reboot Guilliman's invasion across the Rift, for example. But undoubtedly, one of the most exciting developments and promises for the future within Genefather for me is concerning the Adeptus Mechanicus. And that's why I've left this discussion until last, because it really feels like it's reached a precipice moment. That this is the catalyst for a major change. So, as we know, the Lord Commander Guilliman has run out of patience waiting for Belisarius Cawl to provide him answers. Belisarius promised he could stem the flow of the Immaterium and save the galaxy by using the Necron anti-warp pylon technology as a basis to create his own network. As such, he's been given plenty of rope and leeway by Guilliman to act on this, to roam the galaxy seeking answers, furthering his experimentations. However, it's reached a point now that Guilliman needs to know, one way or the other, can it be done? Belisarius's continued silence can no longer happen. He doesn't have the luxury of 10,000 years to work on this project. And so within Genefather, we saw Guilliman give Belisarius 1 Terran year. 1 year to conduct his experiment and confirm if his own pylon system will work, yes or no. And this ultimatum has really put Belisarius into a bit of a bind, because the truth is he can't do it. Sure, he can make a pylon or two, but getting a whole network to work in concert with each other, as the Necrons did, well, he simply can't figure it out. At least not in the time span that Guilliman has demanded. Now, a normal person may tell Guilliman, "Sorry, I've really tried, but I just can't get it to work." However, Belisarius Cawl is not that kind of man. His ego would quite simply never allow it. And to be fair to the guy, he does genuinely want to save the galaxy. And this leads to the very premise of today's discussion, because in his desperation to prove to Guilliman it can be done, that he can do it, Belisarius summons or requests a meeting with representatives of several Forge Worlds, ones generally close to Ultramar and favourable to his reputation. Through the course of that meeting, Belisarius unveiled his desire and intention to restore, fix and improve the Necron pylon system, but that in order to do so, in no longer having time as a luxury, he needed to acquire the technology to get a network working from the Necrons themselves. He found a planet he believes was a control hub of some kind, a particularly important one, as it appears its star was attacked at some point through history and turned into a black hole, most likely within the war in heaven. And it's all a bit technical, as things are with the Adeptus Mechanicus, but with this world being trapped within the black hole, time seems to work differently. And so rather than wanting the Forge World's help to build the pylon network system itself, Belisarius actually wants their help to go back in time and steal the technology they need from this particular world, trapped within the black hole. To do this, Cawl's willing to offer the Forge Worlds a complete map of all the Necron Pylon and Blackstone deposits across the galaxy. Essentially an Adeptus Mechanicus version of winning the lottery. But this all causes a bit of an uproar. With time travel and manipulating the timeline in any way, a prime ban of Mars. Ultimately, however, the conclusion is, Forge Worlds Akatran and Tigris would agree to aid Belisarius. Forge World Metallica, however, and I know probably the coolest name for a Forge World going, refuses Cawl, and most importantly, states they will be sending a delegation to Mars to pursue Belisarius' excommunication from the Cult Mechanicus. Now, delegations complaining about Belisarius' call to Mars are probably not that uncommon. Let's be honest here, he has a lot of enemies throughout the Mechanicum for his unconventional ways. However, this could be a step too far. It's one thing to suspect Belisarius of being a heretic, using artificial intelligence or whatever else, but to have concrete proof of him defying one of Mars's prime bans, regardless of his intent, well, that could finally be the straw that breaks the camel's back, forcing the Fabricator General of Mars to act. Now, the current Fabricator General of Mars is an Audia Raskian, and I absolutely think it's about time we got to see a little bit more of the Fabricator General in the lore. He's made appearances in the Vaults of Terror and Watchers of the Throne series, but I mean, this guy is the head of the entire Adeptus Mechanicus. He is a hugely important member of the Imperium. And it'd be great to see him truly begin to have a bit of a presence within the lore, which I think could well begin to happen now with this turn of events. Regardless of Belisarius' denials on wanting to be made Fabricator General, whether he does or not, the rumours are out there, and surely would have reached Mars itself. There's absolutely no way Raskian would be happy about that, especially with Belisarius' clear and close working relationship with Guilliman, which could even be described as favoured. Raskian could well have wanted to do something about Belisarius sooner, but the shadow and presence of Guilliman and their working relationship would have made it difficult to do so. Now, however, with Belisarius brazenly defying the most important edicts of Mars, well, this could be the opportunity that Raskian has been waiting for. Or conversely, maybe Raskian hasn't wanted to do anything about Belisarius, preferring to turn a blind eye given his power and following, as long as he stayed away from Mars. Yet now he can no longer do so. With Belisarius' continued actions, maybe Raskian is forced to act. Either way, you've got to feel that this is a definitive moment. A moment of change. And we haven't even mentioned Inquisitors being unhappy with Belisarius for his actions, giving yet another emboldening reason for Raskian to act, and act now. The last thing he wants is the Inquisition turning more attention to the goings-on his Forge Worlds. Independent power or not, if the Inquisition feels like it needs to act, it will act. So the question is, what will Raskian do? What comes next? Given this is the Mechanicus we're talking about here, an organisation with even more mystery than the Imperium, it's hard to say. Perhaps in a future Guilliman novel, we could see the Lord Commander responding to an appeal from the Fabricator General regarding Cawl. Maybe we could even see the two conversing directly. For me, it would make sense for Raskian to reach out to Guilliman first, maybe being unsure or unwilling to incur the Primarch's wrath and anger if he dealt with Cawl himself. Maybe Raskian could ask Guilliman to do it, or would simply be seeking to assure himself of Guilliman's position first. Again, the Mechanicum is still worth remembering an entirely independent organisation to the Imperium. They are technically an alliance. As Guilliman said himself to Belisarius, he has no power or right to appoint a Fabricator General. So I'm not sure Raskian would ask Guilliman to censure Belisarius for him, but I could absolutely see him seeking to clarify Guilliman's position on the matter, ensuring that he could deal with Cawl without incurring the Primarch's wrath. And though Guilliman is undoubtedly supporting of Belisarius, I don't think Guilliman would be able to object to Raskian taking action if censure was demanded. Again, I think Guilliman knows his place, trying to intervene with their sovereignty for, at the end of the day, one Magos, as good as Belisarius is not going to happen. Now, could some form of agent be sent to assist or warn Belisarius, with no trace to Guilliman whatsoever? Well, that wouldn't surprise me. So maybe along these lines, we could see a future storyline where Belisarius is summoned to return to Mars. A trial, if you like, before Raskian himself. It would certainly be a very interesting conversation to watch in the depths of Mars. The problem with that, though, is that Belisarius is very powerful in his own right, and has his own loyal following amongst the Forge Worlds, those who want a more forward-thinking Mechanicus. Hauling Belisarius in for a trial on Mars is a risky piece of business when he has such a backing. So, maybe we could see Raskian be more forceful instead. Maybe we could even see conflict erupting between the Forge Worlds. If you know anything about Belisarius, I don't think he'd be the one to start it, but from his followers, an infiltration of Dark Mechanicum maybe. Well, pressured and tense events can easily get out of hand. And if Raskian does take the more forceful approach, arriving with a formidable fleet of Mars to take Cawl in, particularly now when Belisarius has other Forge World forces by his side, well, I wouldn't be too shocked to see some form of conflict or skirmish erupt. The question is, how far could it go? Could this erupt into a war for the Adeptus Mechanicus? Could this see a real movement for Belisarius to be instilled as Fabricator General? Could it even happen? It certainly feels at this point that it's building towards Mars finally coming into the picture. Fabricator General Raskian, one way or the other, having to act in regards to Belisarius Cawl. It's not a situation he can continue to ignore. And while a Mechanicum civil war is highly unlikely, a trial of some sort, an attempt to bring Belisarius in, isn't. So if I had to decide on where I think this is going to go, I think Belisarius will indeed be summoned to return to Mars, which he will ignore or refuse. Not out of any maliciousness, simply deeming as usual his own work to be the more important, not realizing perhaps how grave and serious the situation has become, and that this will lead to Mars, Raskian, having to take more forceful actions. If Raskian doesn't arrive at the head of a fleet preventing Belisarius from launching his time travel expedition, I have a sneaky feeling he may accomplish it, only to find a fleet of Mars waiting for him upon his return. And what a cliffhanger that would be. the Fabricator General himself, waiting to greet Belisarius Cawl. Cawl accomplishing his mission, but losing his prize to the vaults of Mars. Or maybe even having to fight to keep it. But of course that's only a guess at this point. Where it is going to go, only time will tell. But as always everyone, what do you think? With Cawl being directly reported to Mars for breaking a Prime Edict, has the time come for the Adeptus Mechanicus to rein him in? Has the time come for the Fabricator General to reassert his authority? Could this lead to a trial of Cawl, or maybe even possible conflict? Will we see Belisarius and Raskian conversing directly? And could there perhaps be a deal or bargain struck between the two instead? Could it even lead to Belisarius becoming the Fabricator General? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.